Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be talking about the books that I read in March and the book that I'm currently reading. In March I managed to read 3 books, which for me was super amazing because March was such a hectic month for me. As you guys know, I moved from Florida to Tucson, Arizona, and so it's been a huge change. So I am pretty impressed that I managed to read 3 books. The first book that I read was The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan, and I read this for our book club. This is actually the second time that I read this book. I first read it when I was, I think, 18 or 19, and I remember really liking it back then, and I watched the movie and everything, and I just loved the whole idea of the book, so I was really looking forward to reading it again, but also kind of hesitating because I didn't know if I was going to enjoy it as much as I did the first time, but I actually did enjoy it quite a bit. Essentially, this is the story of 4 Chinese women who have immigrated to the United States and started families here in the United States. And then there's also the points of view of their 4 daughters. So they have more children, but the book is focusing on a daughter for each mom. It kind of can be disorienting at times, but at the beginning of the book, there's a page that tells you the mom's names and then their daughters. So you can kind of keep track of who's who. So the story, I mean, this book deals with a lot. It deals with obviously being immigrants in a new country. It deals with each of the moms' backstories in China and what they went through. It talks about the 4 daughters and their current struggles. And basically, every mom feels like their daughter is running away from their culture and that their daughters really don't understand who they are. So there's kind of lots that's being lost in translation between them. There's a disconnect between the mothers and the daughters, and this book explores why there's that disconnect, what could have possibly prompted that disconnect, and how each daughter is dealing with, you know, their identity and their issues in the present day and how they resolve them. So there's a lot going on, but it's definitely a book that I got a lot out of because I identified a lot with the daughters, and I also sympathize with the mothers because it's very hard to raise children in America and try to keep both your culture and then the American culture kind of under one roof. And there's obviously things that are going to be lost in translation because when you are the daughter of an immigrant, or you know, you're coming from another culture, as you're learning all of these American things, parents kind of get left behind, or parents don't really understand why we would want to do things the American way. And so this book kind of deals with that, but it also talks about how as parents, it's not enough to just love your children. It's not enough to want the best for your children. You can still hurt your children without meaning to. And I think that's something that, you know, happens in every culture, no matter where you're from. I just really enjoyed it. I love books about immigrants, and I love books about Chinese culture, and this has kind of like the best of both worlds. So then after that, I listened to 2 audiobooks. The first audiobook that I listened to was The Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. I think that's the title. It's a long title. This book is all about the KonMari method, which is a method of decluttering and kind of looking at your belongings in a different way. The author has introduced kind of like an easy approach for how to declutter your stuff, and her approach is very simple. She wants you to look at everything that you own, and then ask yourself if it sparks joy, and if it sparks joy, then you keep it. If it doesn't, then you discard it. And so the book just talks about how to discard your belongings, how to determine what sparks joy, tips on how to like fold your clothes, how to kind of attack different areas of your home. I thought it was really interesting. I think her approach is very universal. Almost anybody can just look at their things and decide what they feel would spark joy for them. And I think she also is very motivating. She talks about the benefits of decluttering, and she makes a really good case for it. The only thing is that she kind of lost me towards the end of the book when she starts talking about her belongings as kind of having feelings, like her clothes. Like she'll walk into her house and talk to her house, and she'll thank her clothes, you know, and I'm just like, I'm not really with that. She kind of adds a personality to her belongings, I feel, so that she can care about them more, if that makes sense. So I can kind of understand why she does that. I wouldn't personally do that. But overall, I thought it was a really useful book. I think it's also one of those books that you can always like go back to and read certain parts that you want to learn a little bit more about or be reminded about. It has helped a lot, especially now that I'm kind of moving into a new place and I'm unpacking all of these boxes. I'm really realizing just how much crap I have that I don't need or use. And so I kind of have that mentality or that question in my head of, do I really care about this, or does this really bring me joy? And I think it does help with it's one of those things that at first is really hard, but the more you do it, the easier it is to just throw things away. And that's kind of the process that I'm doing right now. And then the third book that I listened to was The Sociopath Next Door, and this is by Martha Stout, and she is a psychologist. And she's been a psychologist for a really long time, and she deals with specifically trauma patients, so patients that have experienced trauma in their lives or have been abused. And she talks about how a lot of these patients have been kind of manipulated and hurt by sociopaths. So she created this book to kind of dispel some myths about sociopaths and to introduce, what a sociopath is, what the characteristics are, and how you can spot and deal with a sociopath. So that's kind of what the book is about. And she uses a lot of examples, like I want to say like 3 or 4 major examples where she really goes in depth, where she's introducing a certain type of sociopath and how they hurt other people. I also really enjoyed how towards the end of the book she tells you like what to spot or what are some key traits of a sociopath, so you can really decide how to deal with them if you do encounter them in your life. And then she also talks about the myths. She talks about how a lot of people, and myself included, think that sociopaths are serial killers. In reality, sociopaths are a lot more common than we think. I think it's 1 in 4 or something like that are actually sociopaths in our midst. And most of them don't kill anybody. Most of them just use people to get to where they want to get to, or manipulate people, or just psychologically hurt people. So that's why she created this book, was because a lot of people thought that sociopaths weren't that common, and she's like, no, actually they're very common, and here's how you can spot them. So that's what this book is about. I wanted to give this 4 stars, but I just couldn't in the end. I think it's because some passages were kind of boring, and she would lose me sometimes. Like I would just kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, but it would, when it comes to psychology and sociology, and especially when it comes to things like psychopaths and sociopaths, like that subject is so fascinating to me that it kind of surprised me that I wasn't like completely immersed in what she was saying. And I think it's because she's a psychologist, not really a writer. At least that's my opinion. So I just was not really as hooked as I could have been, I feel like, if it had been somebody else writing the book. But I think that it's worth reading, especially if you're like me and you really feel like sociopaths are kind of like in a box, and you want to kind of learn a little bit more about what the true characteristics are of sociopaths. And I think that you would really enjoy this book. And so in the end I gave it 3 stars. Those are the 3 books that I read in March. And then I'm currently reading The Genius of Dogs, How Dogs Are Smarter Than You Think. And I think this is by, Brian Hare. The sticker is kind of covering his name. This is all about the intelligence of dogs. And Brian Hare is a scientist who has created experiments to test the genius of dogs. So far I'm really enjoying it. I'm about 25% of the way through, and it's very readable. I also really like the experiments that Brian has created, and how he goes into, how he has tried the experiments on different species to kind of illustrate that dogs really are geniuses. It's not just an easy experiment that any animal can do. So I think that that's really fascinating. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more experiments and a lot more science that Brian's going to be going into. That's something that I do like about this book. He is really going into the more scientific side of dog intelligence, and not just talking about anecdotes and his experience with dogs. So I'm really excited to keep reading this book. I've heard a lot of great things about it. So yes, I will be continuing with this, and I'll let you guys know what I think when I finish it. And then in terms of a life update, I have gotten most of my stuff. I have boxes all over my apartment, and now I'm just in the process of unpacking everything and finding a place for everything and then just decluttering a lot of stuff, like I said. Yesterday I got my bedroom furniture, my sofa. I have a few more furniture pieces that I've recently bought for the house. I'm also donating my old couch, so that needs to be picked up. It's just kind of taking up a bunch of room in the living room, so I cannot wait to do that. And in terms of my job, it's been a complete whirlwind. This has been such a new experience in all kinds of ways. It's a new field, it's a new location, it's a new type of job. Like, everything is new. So I'm just trying to be patient with myself and be a sponge and soak up as much as possible. This is also a job where there's no real like training that you could do. You have to kind of learn as you go. And so that has kind of forced me to be a little bit more patient and just take notes and observe, and hopefully eventually I'll be able to take over a few things. They've already told me like what areas they want me to focus on and take over, so I'm kind of paying special attention to those areas. So yes, so far I'm getting used to Tucson little by little. I'm getting used to my job little by little, and I'm just kind of getting used to the idea that I'm actually living here and this is my job and this is going to be my life now. So yes, that's a little update. I hopefully will be doing a couple of more weekend vlogs here and there because I did enjoy doing those, and I like looking back and kind of seeing, you know, my journey as I progress. So that's, you know, something that I kind of want to keep doing. And then I also want to find like a place to film so I can continue with my booktube channel, because this is one of my hobbies and my favorite hobbies to do. So I really want to get that done. All my books are still in boxes, so a lot of my reading is, you know, through the library or an audiobook, but eventually I'll be setting up bookcases and doing all of that fun stuff, so I cannot wait for that. And yeah, so that's a little update. That's my March wrap up. Let me know down in the comments if you read anything, or if you have any recommendations for me, or if you just want to say hello and talk. I would love to just chit chat with you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.